Labyrinths of Envy. The Golden Children and Greed. In a quiet suburb of New York City, in a stylish home surrounded by green trees and quiet streets, lived the White family. Richard White, a successful technology businessman, and his wife Mary, who ran part of the family business, were considered icons of successful living. Their two children, Jason and Caroline, were the golden children of this ideal family. The White home was filled with an atmosphere of success and luxury. Spacious rooms filled with light, a cozy living room with a fireplace, wall shelves decorated with diplomas and awards. The family office, where important decisions were made for the future of the business, reflected the family's successful journey. The first chapter tells of the children growing up in this environment of wealth and influence. Jason, who had a background in medicine, and Caroline, a passionate supporter of art and design, felt that their lives were destined to be not just successful, but even more impressive. Despite their outward prosperity, however, the children delved deeper into their ambitions and perceptions of life. Envy of parental wealth and power began to color their view of their family history. This chapter ends with the moment when Jason and Caroline decide to change their destiny and begin to realize their ambitious plans. Envy and the incredible plan. It all started that evening when the stars seemed especially bright and the air was filled with mysterious excitement. Jason and Caroline, seated in Jason's spacious office, talked about their feelings and aspirations. Envy of the image of successful parents cursed their own accomplishments and minds. Jason, gazing into the medical diploma mirror on the wall, realized that becoming a doctor for him was not an art of healing, but a step toward gaining power. Caroline, surrounded by art canvases and design models, dreamed of becoming not just an artist, but an icon of style and influence. In their conversations, a plan was born, so ambitious and audacious that even the children themselves didn't believe they would dare to take such a step. Jason proposed using his knowledge of medicine to create fake drugs that could affect memory and orientation. These pills, he thought, could be the key to winning the parenting business. Envy, like a dark plume, made its way to the devious plan. At this point, they decided that their parents' success was simply an impediment to their own brilliance. Under the cover of night, among the shady alleys of the house, they began their dangerous endeavor, daring to play with fire that neither themselves nor their parents had foreseen. Playing with fire. 3 weeks had passed since Jason and Caroline began their sinister game. Time passed, and they kept a close eye on the changes in their parents' behavior. Intertwined with ordinary family moments, they continued to inject their poison into their daily lives. Jason, a physician by training, acted as a movie doctor, keeping his secrets in the dark corridors of the family pharmacy. He studied the composition of the drugs in detail, developing special dosages to change his parents' perceptions of the past and present. Caroline, a passionate supporter of art, became an artist of her own conspiracy. She looked at her paintings, imagining them becoming the key to changing the ownership of the grand family legacy. The parents, meanwhile, were becoming prisoners of this dastardly game. Their minds were slowly but inevitably being altered, as if someone was forging a new destiny from their memories. Their conversations became confused and their gazes were often lost in uncharted distances. But the real twist came when a box of medicines accidentally fell into Richard's hands, and among them he discovered strange pills. Richard's inner compass went off the scale with anxiety, and at that moment he decided it was time to solve this puzzle. Chapter 3 concludes, leaving the reader waiting for events to unfold. Richard, suspecting that something dark is going on, sets out to uncover the truth, and thus begins a new phase of their tragic story. Father's note. That evening when Richard found the strange pills, an air of tension hung over the White household. Richard, more than usually attentive to detail, began to notice something amiss in his children's behavior and, eventually, in his own health. He picked up the box that usually held the medications and glanced through the list of medications. His heart slowed its rhythm when he saw the unfamiliar pills that didn't fit into the standard treatment he was taking. Richard, a physician by training, didn't hesitate to deploy his medical knowledge in search of answers. He conducted his own analysis, and the results were disappointing. Rather than try a treatment based on symptoms, Richard decided to take the pills for evaluation. At this point, his father's note began to unravel. Richard, in the process of unraveling the puzzle, carefully traced the thin threads of suspicion. He watched each step carefully, contemplating how the children could try to take away not only his ownership of the business, but even the very control of his life. Waiting for the results of the forensic examination was nerve-wracking. Richard realized that this note was the key to unlocking the mystery his own children held. The fate of the White family began to balance on a fine line, and Chapter 4 concludes as he anticipates the unraveling of this complex puzzle. The truth examination. The long days of waiting for the results of the forensic examination had been an ordeal for Richard. He felt that every minute was drawing him toward uncovering a sinister conspiracy that he felt threatened not only his business, but the very foundation of family harmony. When the results came back, of course, Richard opened the letter with trepidation. The forensics confirmed his suspicions. The pills he found in his medication contained substances that could affect memory and orientation. But the mere fact of this failed examination was not the only exciting finding. Along with the results of the examination, Richard received an anonymous note. It secretly informed him that his children, Jason and Caroline, were behind the insidious plot. A mixture of horror and disappointment swept through his entire body. The invisible threads of trust that connected his own blood had been severed. In that moment, it was clear that the game of fire started by the children had escalated into a conflagration that threatened to consume the entire family empire. Richard decided it was time to take control of the situation, restore order to the family, and bring back balance. He rose, closing the letter and note in his hand, and headed for the place where the light path to the truth was shed, his own study. Chapter 5 ends with exciting suspense and anticipation of the next events that are to change the course of this family drama. Lost trust. The atmosphere in Richard's study was tense. He stood in front of his desk, holding the examination results and an anonymous note in his hands. His eyes brimmed with a mixture of surprise and anger. It was a moment of truth that brought out all the hidden anger and greed that lay at the very heart of his family. The stamp on the paper carried the confirmation of what he felt deep inside: his own children, who had seemed like golden angels, had betrayed him. The envy and ambition seen in their eyes had severed the last threads of trust. With this revelation, Richard realized that he would have to sacrifice a part of his own heart to restore balance to his family. He called his children into the study, and the moment they stepped inside, a silence hung in the room that spoke of an imminent confrontation. Chapter 6 describes Richard's long-awaited meeting with Jason and Caroline. Emotions hang in the air like a tense cloud, and the conversation begins with questions that each of them must answer. Trust has been lost, and now they are faced with the task of rebuilding not only family bonds, but the very idea of family as a value. The price of envy. Richard's office filled with tension as Jason and Caroline entered. Their gazes met, and in that moment it was clear that this conversation would be decisive in the fate of the White family. Richard, holding the forensic results and the anonymous note, began to question his children. Emotions boiled beneath the surface, and each word became an invisible blade in this family fight. The children tried to justify themselves, but the envy and greed that permeated their actions became apparent. Jason and Caroline's motives became clearer in this chapter. They recognized that they felt oppressed by the shadow of their parents' success, and their envy culminated in the idea of controlling the family business. They were blinded by a false perception of their own entitlement to power and influence. Richard, wavering between disappointment and pity, realized that the price they paid for their envy was higher than just the loss of the business. It was the loss of trust, the severing of ties that were thought to be unbreakable. The family battle reached its peak in this chapter, and the White family realized that the road to recovery would be long and difficult. Relationships had been broken, but now the process of rebuilding them was beginning. Chapter 7 raises the question of how far envy can go before it destroys not only the business, but the very essence of the family bond, the path to healing. The family confrontation had left its scars, and now there was a path to healing to be found. The meeting in Richard's office was the first step toward rebuilding trust and understanding between family members. In this chapter, Jason and Caroline, after realizing their mistakes and weighing the cost of their jealousy, begin the healing process. A conversation with their father forces them to face the consequences of their actions and realize that the price they paid for their envy was too high. Richard, though pained by his children's betrayal, decides to give the family union a chance. He realizes that repairing the relationship will take time, but healing begins with open dialogue and mutual understanding. In this chapter, the reader sees the first signs of change in the relationship between Richard, Jason, and Caroline. They begin to realize that family ties are more important than greedy ambition. Chapter 8 leaves the reader with questions about the future of the White family and hope for healing from the traumas of jealousy and betrayal. The path to reconciliation. As time passed, days turned into weeks and weeks into months. The White family continued their journey toward healing, and Chapter 9 becomes an important step in that process. Jason and Caroline decide to change their lives and focus on rebuilding trust. They begin attending therapy sessions where they candidly express their feelings and thoughts. The therapist helps them understand the origins of envy and learn to accept responsibility for their actions. Richard, in turn, tries to open himself up to understanding and forgiveness. He realizes that despite all the mistakes, family is a value worth cherishing. He also participates in family sessions where he expresses his feelings and hopes for the future. Chapter 9 focuses on the process of reconciliation and rebuilding trust. Here the reader sees the White family gradually finding a new balance. It does not happen overnight, but each step toward reconciliation brings new hope for the family's future. Recovery. After months of hard work, the White family reaches an important milestone in their journey, the final chapter. During this period, significant changes have occurred in their lives, and the reader learns how the story of jealousy, betrayal, and the road to healing comes to a close. Jason and Caroline have gone through a difficult journey of self-discovery and personal transformation. Their decision to see a therapist and open up about their feelings helped them understand the roots of envy and learn how to build relationships based on mutual respect. Richard, in turn, became open to forgiveness, realizing that a family can find new meaning through trial. His decision to give a second chance to his children and himself was the key to restoring family unity. The final chapter emphasizes that healing takes time, effort, and mutual understanding. The White family learned the lessons of forgiveness, honesty, and love. They realized that the price of envy can be too high, but also that healing is an opportunity to start anew. Conclusions. The story of the White family serves as a reminder of the importance of family ties and the dangers that can arise from envy and dissatisfaction. The conclusion of the story emphasizes that healing and reconciliation can be achieved if there is a willingness for open communication and change. The reader learns lessons about the importance of dealing with envy, building relationships on mutual respect, and finding the path to forgiveness. In the White family, despite loss and adversity, love and family bonds prove stronger than the ominous shadow of envy that runs through their lives.